Hey, how's it going? You're probably here for a Vynnset deck tech with with trade federations, but I'll be presenting it today as a top 4 player in the Battle Hardened Barcelona.
Yeah. Usually, I thought I'd do the intro, but you've done it for me, so
Okay, good. It'll save you some work.
Yeah. All right. Any shouts for you getting?
Oh, I'll give a big shout out to Mox in the Hole, and I guess I'll give one out to Daniel winning. Very close game in top 8. Not completely steamrolled at all. Very close. I think Vynnset's a really fun hero. I think she's got a lot better. I think the new card she got helped a huge amount. We'll get to it. I saw it and I was like, that's a busted card. It has to be time for her now. I put a lot of time into her. I've lost a lot of elo. But I think now she might be there, which is good. We'll just jump straight into the deck tech.
Let's go.
I assume most people don't know what she does at this point. The start turn, you have to banish a card. You get a rune chant, and you'll ideally be trying to rune gate every turn against most decks.
Ideally.
Except against some. We'll get to that. You can pay a life if you play a shadow non-attack action. And it makes the first rune chant unpreventable.
Okay.
Okay, so go to the equipment first. Classic. Flail of Agony. And Grim Over the Haunt. I don't run any other offhands. It's an AB1. The instant to make an Eloquence is actually quite useful. It can come up a late game. It won't come up every game. Some games you won't use it. It's fine. I don't think it's worth including the shield or anything. That's a bit awkward. It can just give you 1 life. And the high roll of the Eloquence can help you a lot more, in my opinion. Flail's great. Let's pay a life. Triggers a lot of Vynnset ability to take life. Gives you a rune chant on hit. It can be quite annoying. Generally, people will throw armor in front of it, but you can chip it away. It does help.
Would Reaping Blade have been useful at all?
Reaping Blade. So we will get to that in some matchups. I will say what changes I would make to the deck as well going forward.
Okay.
Generally, it's the only weapon you want. Reaping Blade might be a consideration in the CYB meta, which it probably will be. But it's nice having a free weapon, which you have to pay for. Vynnset wants to pay for those things as little as possible. Armor, so headpiece, I just have Face Purgatory. There is some consideration for like Crown and Providence, things like that, but Face Purgatory is just a really good card. It can disrupt turns really well. Essentially, as a 2-block, if you're blocking with 2 cards, it will block for 7 or 8. Draw your card back, so it's essentially a 5-block helm, if you're thinking about it like that. 4 or 5 block. It can disrupt turns. It's just solid value, really. Tunic, you need the resource counter. First Spellbind Creepers. These two go together really well. Unless you pay for the other. Spellbind Creepers is very broken. If you can get more than 1 activation of it, you're incredibly happy. And if you even get to block 1 afterwards, that's pretty good value. Some matchups, especially against aggro, it will just be a block 1. That is the way of it. You can't keep as many cards in hand to fully utilize them, but hey, 1 breakpoint isn't the worst thing in the world. Basic Cool Hands is a glove I just use. 2 rune chants whenever you need. It's just great. Essentially, it's not only just 2 damage, but it pays for itself by giving you kind of 2 resources for a rune gate. So that's kind of 4 value off gloves, if you think about it like that, which I do. It has AV1 as well, which does come up. Okay, we'll get to the rest of the equipment in the sideboard.
No, I should have brought a stand if my hands again. So.
You can hold it. No, you got this, Sim. I believe in you.
No, you take credit for filming this masterpiece.
So I already got a shot.
All right, so onto the main board, yeah?
Going on to the main board. We'll go through attacks first.
Okay.
Bounty Demagon is 0 cost attack. it's not the best, and going forward, I would probably replace
don't
it.
tell people that. Tell it's amazing.
But it's amazing, especially in wide turns. If you don't have any rune chance, it can be great just to put out a 0 for 4 at the end of your turn. You do have to play a non-attack action to be able to play it from Banish, which can be awkward if you need to block a lot. But it can be a good one to put in Arsenal. It's just a 0 for 3, or if you get Codexed, it's not hard to get out. Not a game-breaking piece, but just kind of a handy little. It blocks 3 as well. Eloquent Eulogy is our only 1-cost Runegate. I play 3 of them. It's a great 1-card play. If you have no rune chest set up, you can just be like, okay, block with 3 cards, banish this, that's 1 card 5, which will give you an eloquence on hit. Very useful. It can enable some very crazy plays, the eloquence, but it's great for just a wide turn. The fact it costs 1 is huge. You can also have it in Arsenal and play it off a Tunic. Great card.
I agree.
Going on to the 2-cost rune gates. The most basic one, I would say, is Phantom Wraith. 2 cost 6. Nothing crazy, but if it's a 1-card 8, that's pretty damn good.
I'm going to try and make this a bit more aesthetically pleasing.
Okay. We'll go for the Western Ruins. Kind of same thing, but with text. So, banish from your opponents. It's not the greatest thing most of the time. But if you can get the banish on yourself, it can enable wider turns. So, in fatigue matchups, you're quite happy to take a card off the top of your deck. It doesn't really matter if you're banishing off the opponent's deck. Sometimes against Earth matchups that can actually hurt, as it turns out. Moving on, 3 Deathly Delights. The value tends to be around the same as Phantom Wraith because you lose 1 point of attack, but you'll get 1 point of healing. If you're doing it in the same turn as you play a Shadow action, you actually get that 1 point back because you'll get 2 points of healing. It can give you a free flail if you have Go again. So it is, I would say, slightly higher value. 5 and 6 aren't too different damage-wise. They'll still get blocked out by 6 block. Moving on to the 3-cost rune gates, you have your bread and butter, Deathly Whale. So this makes the deck, essentially. You make a rune-chant for every person who's taking damage. Incredible. Just throwing this as your only attack of the turn guarantees you will have, if they take damage, guarantees that you'll have at least 1 rune-chant for next turn. If you want a wide turn, a Shadow non-attack action into this guarantees you 2 for the next. So you can go Deathly Whale into Deathly Delight with a Go again. Great.
It's pretty deathly.
It's very deathly. So I actually play 3 of the reds and 3 of the yellows. I may play some of the blues later on, but the fact it's a 4 can be a little funky. But it's a staple of the deck. I play 3 Phantom Banshees. Just having a 7 breakpoint in a deck of 6 attacks can make a big difference if you're trying to force through a non-hit. And it can make it very awkward to block late game. It doesn't run on hit, but that's up to you to put in. Widespread Destruction, banishes from Arsenal. Can be great against some decks. Against others, if they're playing D-Reacts, they'll just D-React onto it. If they're playing stuff they can play out to instant speed, they can just play it out. But altogether, it's good to just be able to threaten the Arsenal. Especially some decks just aren't able to pay for the AB especially. And it just guarantees its death at that point. I play only 2 Widespread Annihilations. Banish from hand means it's pretty much guaranteed to get a value. They'll either full block with their hand, paying to the AB and the block, or they'll take the hit and you take card out of their hand. That's just very good. The fact that it's a 4 cost can make it slightly awkward sometimes, so 2 of them seems right around the correct number for me. You don't want to see them too often, but when you do, it's great. And they're very good for starting a big turn, a big wide turn, because your opponent is forced to at least give you a card, and it makes it harder to block out the rest of the attacks. Okay, so that's actually 28 attacks, which I think is a good amount for Vynnset. You don't want too many attacks. You don't want a hand of 4 attacks. You don't want a hand of 4 non-attacks. So finding that kind of mix is good to keep the deck moving. So going on to the non-attack actions, I will find what arguably I think is the most important of them. Malefic Incantation, which was a new card in Rosetta. It's a 0-cost aura. It makes rune chants. That's pretty much what we want. It can help you go wide on turns, and it's great for sending one attack. You end a turn with your rune chant. You set up for your next turn. I think it's incredible, and it's definitely changed the way the deck has been played. It's also great for going on wider turns, as it lets you create more rune chants to get another attack. You're not as dependent on Deathly Wail. So I actually play the 2 yellows as well.
Tempted to play 3?
It's hard to fit everything in, especially because I play 2 Runeblood Incantations to mix things up, which just give you a rune chant at the start of your turn as opposed to on attack. Sometimes it's nice just to guarantee that you're getting a rune chant and you're not forced to attack to get anything. They cost 1, so they're a little more awkward. You want to be paying for as little as possible in this deck. And I don't want to see too many of them, but it's definitely good to get out early game. And it's one reason why I run Sonata Glacius. So this is kind of my aura package. You want to get... I see Vynnset very much as kind of an engine deck, where you're trying to get enough rune chants to keep the engine going, so that ideally, especially against aggro, you can block 3 cards, send 1 attack for 2-3 rune chants, and 6 damage, ideally with disruption. That's just good value, very hard for them to stop, and you'll essentially outvalue them. Having so many of them, especially with these searchers, helps you see them as often as possible early game. I think it's just a really good package. Obviously, you don't want to see too many at the same time, and there's actually a card I'll get to later, which can kind of help if you see too many of them too early. But we'll get to that. Cool. Outside the auras, we have 3 Deadwood Dirges,
Nice,
which are they're just incredible cards for Vynnset. You start your turn with 1 rune chant essentially because it's a banished attack, but most of your cards need at least 2. This destroys 1 to go up to 3. So just by itself, that's a 2 card 9 most of the time.
It's like 3 extra copies of Vex and Quillhand in a way, right?
Exactly. But not only that, because things like Runeblood Incantation hang out for a turn after they've lost all their counters, you can actually use it on an empty Runeblood Incantation to get the 3 rune chants, which is just better value. You can also use it on opposing auras which you've been given. For example, a Bloodrot box or a Frailty token, which just gives you extra value and takes away a negative effect. So it's just great. I don't see why you wouldn't run 3 of them. It lets you attack easier, does more damage. Perfect. I'll get to those in a sec. We have, so main board, I run 3 Machinations of Dominion and 3 Succumb to Temptations as my kind of go-against sources. Machinations, blue, block 3. You will be getting the Overpower and the Go Again every turn because you make a rune chant at the start of your turn. Overpower comes into effect more than you'd think. It's great against a lot of decks just to force that little bit of damage through. It's just a solid card. I kind of replaced the Morvian Skies with these. Just having a 3-block is very useful on a non-attack action. Succumb to Temptation. People have started playing around a lot more. But against some decks which can't pitch and who don't want to block, it just tears a card out of their hand, gives you a go again for the flail, and it's just the fact that you get to see the card makes it so much better than just your enemy gets to discard. You can just ruin turns with this card. I think it's so good, and it's something which people have to play around. Talk about people having to play around cards. We'll get to the new card for Vynnset. So 3 culls. I think this is a bonkers good card. It's just very flexible. You can play it as a 0-cost pummel, so if you attack with a card, they take a little bit of damage. You can be like, okay, I will now say you must banish a card. You can play it when you have an empty hand. You can play it just from banish by itself if you want to set up turn, but you want to put a little pressure on them. You can just take a card out of the hand, so instead of a 4-card turn, they'll come at you with a 3-card turn. Much easier to deal with. You can play it on their turn if you've taken some damage and you sense a big combo is coming. If you time it correctly, you can just rip that crucial finisher out of their hand. Very satisfying. You'll get a lot of annoyance out of those, but do be aware that you'll have to take a card out of your hand as well. So it kind of is 2 cards to have that effect. Obviously, you can play a lot of cards from banish. Speaking of which, Funeral Moon, same kind of thing. You can play it from banish. Much less of a kind of a crippling effect, but it's a 3-block. It can give you that crucial card when you need that crucial reenchant just when you need it. These 2 also work very well with Flail if you need to trigger that Vynnset ability of making the reenchant unpreventable. When you pay a life to attack with a Flail, you will then trigger Vynnset's trigger these to be able to attack, play this instant before the reenchant is in effect, thus making it a 1-card essentially. Kill all their ward and threaten a reenchant, take a card out of hand, or make another reenchant for next turn. So they're just very useful shadow cards to have. Okay, so I think moving on to the sideboard. So the equipment, I have my little, probably Kano package of Ebonfold, Diadic Carapace, and Dance of Darkness. You start with your gloves and your offhand at 2 AB. This bumps you up to 4. It's not vital, you're not going to be paying for a lot of the time, but it's nice to have access to, especially because the gloves won't last forever. You will likely pop them at some point, so this gives you the ability to pay for more. These are both essentially Spell Void 2. If you prevent it on his combo, it makes it very hard for Kano to get through. I wouldn't play this in anything outside Kano. This I would maybe bring in against Verdant. I don't know if it's worth it against Acilio, even though it's nice to kind of just blank one, Mind Warp. The other hat's very good against them as well. So it is I'm still kind of learning what's right to do. I actually bring this in occasionally for things like Dio, where you just need to block on hits. And just having the extra 3 armor can make a huge difference, and you're not going to be able to use Tunic as much anyway for Cooper shenanigans. Speak about aggro. I have, so essentially the deck is 52 cards, and I bring in 8 cards. So against aggro, I will bring in a package of 3 Haunting Renditions, 2 Sinks, and 3 Reduced to Reenchants.
You're hiding the whiteboarded one at the back there, yeah?
I am, yeah. I am still to find my 3rd black border. I'm not ashamed. I'm proud of this guy. He can come front and center. They're all 4 blocks. They do other things, obviously. Sink, everyone knows that. Reduce is just great value if you get a trigger. Ideally, because you're ending with the rune chant a lot of the time with Malefic Incantations, you won't have to pay for this. So in that case, it's just crazy good value. With Haunting Rendition, the other mode of being able to discard for 2 can be great for things like Assassins and Syndra, where they're trying to flick little instances of 1, but which threaten on hits and card draw. Just be able to prevent one and then have that one floating for a break point. Give yourself a Rune Chamber next turn. It's great. I think Vynnset is great into these aggro matchups where they can't really block your Arcane and just want to keep attacking you, and you can just block with 3 cards, cover most of the damage, send back 1 huge attack with an on hit. That's great. That's a very happy game plan for her. However, fatigue matchups are quite a bit different, especially for my deck. I'm probably not as teched for it, but I have 3 Shadow Puppetry, and 3 Tear Through the Portal as the kind of shadow non-attack go again enablers. Shadow Puppetry is definitely the better one because it gives you +1 as well and can let you check the top and banish it to go even wider. But I would say Tear Through the Portal definitely has its moments because you don't have to target an attack action. You can target something like a Funeral Moon or a Cull to get, especially if you pay a life for it. The Culls and the Funeral Moons become instants.
What do I point?
So you essentially get 2 action points. You get the go again from this, and the go again from an instant. So it kind of can give any attack. It doesn't have to be a red attack. It can kind of give that other attack go again in a way, or give you the action points to do other things. I also play 2 Beseech the Demigons, just as another shadow non-attack action, against things like Prism or Enigma. You kind of need those shadow non-attack actions to punch through the ward. Just gives you so much more value. It doesn't give go again, but having +3 is just pretty decent. And some tech consideration for me. I have 2 Inverse Existences. It can be good for sniping Count Your Blessings from the graveyard, if you remember it, like I didn't in my top 4 match. Very disappointing. But it was also quite a cheeky kind of target of Syndra. If you can respond to her re-equip trigger, you can snipe both daggers and absolutely ruin her day. And I think that's very funny. Also, because a lot of people play just 1 AB into us, having the ability to just do 1 extra over can help you get lethal. It got me my lethal against Daniel Winning in top 8. So it was worth it. It was worth it just for that inclusion. My final card is a One of Remembrance, which I don't see a lot of people playing. For my deck specifically, because I want to see those auras, and I think it makes such a big difference in your gameplay getting them out. Some people have learned to just block a lot, wait till the auras run out, and then you're kind of a little bit stunted for your turns. So this just shuffles 3 of them back into the decks, or 3 of whatever you need. If you need more shadow non-attack actions, or you're running low on attacks, it just gives you 3 what you need. Most of the time, I'm shuffling 3 Malefic Incantations back into the deck, just to get that 0 cost. Empowers your turns. It lets you keep the engine running. I think it's quite good. Card just included as just a one-off. I don't want to go crazy with it, but I think it's pretty decent. Okay, and that is the deck tech.
Okay.
I hope that's given you some ideas of what to do. I think the deck plays really well. It's probably the best it's ever been. I look forward to see where it's going to go. I think she's got some really good matchups right now. She's got some bad matchups. I'm sure we'll get
Count Your Blessings, y'all.
That's one of them. It's getting better. I've got some tech for that.
Yeah.
Going forward, but it's still not an easy matchup. I just hope all those news and Enigmas band together to keep your ally to the format for as long as possible. I actually think our matchup to those are pretty good. So, yeah, we can go over my matchups at another point.
Sure.
We'll come back to this video. Cut to fade. Again, nice to see you guys again. So just going through the matchups I had, I will try and remember them to the best of my ability. I started off the day very nicely with an Aurora match, which I think is very standard for the Vynnset deck. I think it's quite good. You have enough 4 blocks in the sideboard to cover the majority of their breakpoints. They have a real hard time blocking, especially your succumb attacks, your culls. You can really ruin their turn. As long as you see disruption, you get your auras out early. It's largely quite good. I would say just be careful of the meld card they have, which can blow up auras. My opponent tried to do that turn 1, I believe, and I was actually able to play into the AB so that he could blow up the rune chance. There was a bit of a judge call. As long as he's dealing 0 damage, you can't blow up the rune chance, but you can still blow up the 0 cost auras. So just be aware of that card. That's the only card that can really disrupt you. My next opponent was my first loss of the day. It was an Iraqi marionette. It was actually a super close match. Really good fun. He was a super nice guy. He managed to set up a really nice kind of last turn lethal from 9. I was trying to keep 1 attack in hand, and he was at 2. And I think that would have finished him, but he did the classic Kiss of Death with the dagger buff, dagger reduce thing, tarantula toxin, and buffed it with something else. And I think I respected it with like 9 block, and it wasn't quite enough. I would have had to give my entire hand, and that would have been tough to go back from. But he was a super nice guy. It was a fun match. Moving on, I fought. I'm trying to remember now. I believe it was a Jarl, a first Jarl of the day, which I think was a fun matchup. It's a tough one. He wasn't playing CYB. Felt like he was a little newer. So he made some iffy decisions in blocking, and I was able to squeak out some damage just the last minute and just get there with, I think, about 4 or 5 cards left in deck. Very close, very tense. I don't want to fight Jarls, but it is what it is. Going on, I definitely can't remember some of these. I think it was my first Syndra. It was a very standard Syndra game for me, where you can prevent the card draw 99% of the time. Maybe that's a slight exaggeration. Most of the time, you can prevent the card draw. As long as you're keeping a card to attack, you will chip them down faster than they will chip you down. It just feels like quite a comfortable matchup. I believe then it was a Prism. I think Prism, it can be very flip-floppy, so if they manage to get tempo early, it can be hard to claw it back. If you don't see poppers and you need to see poppers, it can be tough. I bring in the D-reacts, or some of the D-reacts in the sideboard for it. Being able to block with a popper, and then see if they're going to do the Celestial Reprimand to make it not a popper, and then you can D-react to put it up to 7 to cover the block. That, I think, can cover a lot of bases. And also you have the Vynnset ability to kill angels, so they can never just awaken all the angels and just sit there being like, what you can do with my 20 or so ward, which is really nice. They've got to play a bit differently. I think it's a very winnable matchup, as long as you know what you're doing. I will say there have been some who, if they realise that they can fatigue you slightly easier than you can fatigue them, it can be much harder. You then have to fight for squeezing damage through. It's the Jason. But again, I think it's an okay matchup. I played against a very good Vynnset. I think it's quite a flip matchup. It tends to be, do you see your disruption? Do they see any disruption? Do they have a huge more trick tide turn? But I think things like Cull and Succumb, just keeping their hand size down from, if they come at you with a 5-card hand, they can have a huge turn. A 4 or 3-card hand, Vynnset can do a lot less. So it's all about kind of throwing as much disruption at him as possible and keeping him off insane turns. He's very much a force multiplier, and if you knock him down to having to block and throwing 2-card hands, that's trades you're going to win. After that, I'm trying to think. I can't actually remember what this person was playing. I think it's actually, no, I do know. It was round 6. It was a new, because it was a CYB new who I had a stream game against. He was a very good guy. He made a big mistake at the end, and that cost him the game. No, if I'd known he was a CYB new, I might have sideboarded slightly differently, but I think I got very lucky. I think I had the D-reacts exactly when I needed to see them. I had the culls, I had the succumbs exactly when he didn't want to block. So I was able to get a lot of value and have some incredibly good turns. And yeah, he made a slight mistake in blocking at the end where he didn't block with his hat. He got a little greedy and he went to 1, and then the next turn I just went channel non-attack action, rune chant, flail, killed him. And he realized, like, just at that point, I made a big mistake. So that was a shame for him, but he was a really nice guy. And then I had Pablo Pintor. You might have heard of him as my winning opponent, which is pretty terrifying at the time, but he was on Syndra. And I think it just went as straightforward a match as I would ever want. He had one unlucky thing where he rabbled, hit the blow on top, and was like, oh. I was like, well, sorry, man. It happens. But I don't know how much it would have changed. It would have meant I would have had to maybe block slightly more to cover the card draw for mask momentum. But honestly, it was just, the game went exactly how I wanted it. So I think it's a very good matchup. My top 8 matchup was against Daniel Winning. Smashed the guy, didn't stand a chance, whatever. No, I did get a little lucky at the end, and there were some duff hands on both sides. So it was probably my hardest Syndra matchup of the day. But cracked him right at the end.
I hear Sink Below came in quite handy that game.
Sink Below, yes. I had a non-attack hand, sunk into a 1-cost rune gate when I didn't have any auras out, and he had decided to finish his turn with the Warmongers. And I was like, thank God I drew into that 1-cost. It was pretty timely. But you know what? Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I'll take those. And then I had my matchup against the CYB Earl, who ended up winning the entire thing. And I played it badly. I think I could have done a lot more setup turns. But without Reaping Blade, that could be punished quite easily by just him gaining a lot more life. So I definitely learned some things in that matchup, and it was a tough one. I think if I played it right, I probably still would have lost, but I didn't, and I lost a lot. So that was tough, but it was a long day. I had a good result, so I was okay with that. He was a nice guy.
You took Vynnset further than anyone has ever taken her. So
I think so.
It's just a shame you got destroyed.
It was a poor way to lose, but you know what? We learn from these things, and hopefully the changes I plan to make to the deck will make it a bit better against CYB Earl.
Yeah.
So yeah, going forward, good things. I think she'll only get better, and if she gets any more cards, I think she'll be a real danger.
Yeah, well, Viscerai, basically at LL, you're going to have to play 1 Rune Blades, and there's only one that really does actual arcane still, so. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, Finlay. Congrats again on top 4.
You're welcome.
All those grinding.
How did you do? Did you do, Tim?
I did okay, I think.
That's good.
I don't have my matchup notes here, so I can't see.
Another time. You did really well on the progress afterwards, so.
Yeah, playing hungover is way better than not playing hungover.
So we've all learned.
Well, catch you in the next one, Finlay. Goodbye.
Bye.